Good afternoon. You know me. I'm Dr. Mark Andrew Holacek. I'm a Jefferson scholar, philosopher, historian, and I'm coming to you from my hermitage in Lynchburg. And I got a special show for you on the Real Thomas Jefferson. Call it a canceled Christmas. I had a wonderful Christmas. Went back to see family in Detroit, and prior to that, I had an opportunity to watch a really fascinating documentary called "The Fall of Minneapolis" by Liz Collins and Dr. J.C. Chase. And the documentary was chilling. It was eye-opening. I learned a lot. It wasn't your typical documentary where you're left thinking, well, that's a plausibility. It was uh, an elaboration evidence on the George Floyd quote unquote murder case that left no doubt in your mind that the officers involved in the supposed murder, in the avowed murder, were completely innocent of the charges. Now, Liz Collins is a reporter from Minneapolis, and she wrote a book, They're Lying, the Media, the Left, and the Death of George Floyd. Uh, I found the documentary painstakingly researched. So the book, I'm sure, is painstakingly researched. It rather convincingly shows that George Floyd um, was the cause of his own death and that the four officers involved, one of whom was African American, and that's not readily available to the public, or it's not known, um, followed you know, followed police procedure to the letter. And what we do know that it was said that the EMS wasn't called, someone had to do it outside. The police officer called EMS within minutes because they thought that Floyd was under the influence of something. His behavior is so erratic. The record shows that Floyd had a large criminal record, that he had intoxicants in his body, enough of one certain intoxicant, according to the coroner, that it could have killed him. He had a history of hysteria. He had substantial arterial blockage. And what the videos show, and they have videos from the cameras from the officers, that he did everything that he could do to not cooperate with the police at the time. And uh, Liz Collins called, the at the trial there were crimes of omission. She says that certain things that were not made available to the people who testified or at the trial, I should say. And for all intents, we know that Derek Chauvin, the man who was accused of murdering, was stabbed recently some 22 times in his prison cell. But for all intents and purposes, it is Floyd, not Chauvin or any of the officers, who really is responsible for Floyd's death. Now, Floyd today is eulogized as President Biden, Nancy Pelosi, right, as this great man, a champion for civil rights. He wasn't. He was a criminal and not deserving of the respect of the eulogies he is today given. Now, one of the things that struck me is that when you watch the documentary, you realize everything went wrong at the trial and that innocent men were thrown into prison. Four men, one man seriously given Chavin given a large sentence, and that this was not justice in the least. Yet, nonetheless, this is what goes on today. The jurors admitted that with the trial held in Minneapolis, they were coerced to come in with a jury of guilty, given that innocent verdict would have resulted in large scale rioting. Why was the trial not held elsewhere? That boggles my mind. It was a kangaroo court, no question. So why am I talking about this? How does it relate to Thomas Jefferson? Well, this is just clearly the woke postmodernist climate today, where people can take an issue and make it larger than the truth. We can take people and make them sacrificial lambs for a particular cause, racial equality here, and make George Floyd into something that he was not. We have people who are much, uh, much wiser scions of our modernist forebears. This is wokeism. This is progressivism today. This is historical revisionism. This is postmodernism. This is our moribund, our dying America. This is the America in which we live in, where people are doing all they can to destroy the country, to destroy the story of our founding fathers, how the country was founded, and yet the people that are doing their best to destroy it and talking about the evils of capitalism. Capitalism has its faults, but for the gosh sakes, these people are certainly monetizing handsomely at the expense of the country while they're tearing the country down. Okay, this brings me to I have here a quote from Aldous Huxley in Brave New World. He says, he's got Bernard Marx's character speaking. He says, everyone belongs to everyone else. After all, 100 repetitions, 3 nights a week for 4 years. Thought Marx, who was a specialist in hypnopedia, 62,400 repetitions make one truth. The idea is sort of being conditioned to see things a certain way. Is exactly the essence of wokeism today. Something similar is going on at Monticello, and something similar has been going on at Monticello for at least 25 years. These are the people of the Thomas Jefferson Foundation who do our thinking for us, who create the narrative, spin the narrative on Thomas Jefferson. It's a tissue of half truths, truths, and egregious falsities. They take facts, and they pluck the facts like ticks off a mangy mongrel, and they create a narrative that shows Thomas Jefferson was a racist. In short, that Thomas Jefferson was incurably vociferous, evil dude, bad guy. Well, the problem is that the people who run Monticello, they know better. They just don't care. They're on the mission to rid the world of racism. And if Thomas Jefferson, like a Chavin, has to be spared, has to be executed in the short term, small price to pay. So we have 4 officers in jail, rotting in jail for following police procedure to the letter. And, if that promotes racial equality, that promotes peace, then so what? Who cares about, the 4 officers? Same with Thomas Jefferson. If we can spin a narrative and sacrifice Thomas Jefferson in the process, make him out to be somebody that he wasn't, then so much the better, because we're pursuing this policy of racial equality. This is consequentialist morality. Consequentialist morality is that the ends justify the means. The consequences are what matter. How you get there doesn't matter. We have a lot of examples of people who were consequentialist thinkers, right? Karl Marx was one, Lenin, Stalin, and other such people were consequentialist thinkers, thinking that Stalin went so far as to say something like, if you're trying to find the guilty person and you have to kill 10 innocent people to assure yourself that you've killed the guilty party, then that's just fine. Nothing wrong with that. Now, the question is how did we get from Thomas Jefferson Memorial Foundation, in other words, celebrating the life and legacy of Thomas Jefferson, the Thomas Jefferson Foundation, where we, really are not interested in lionizing or talking all about Thomas Jefferson, but focusing on vilification of Jefferson, his involvement with Sally Hemings, an affair that I have said 1,000 times very, very likely did not happen, and then take a historically irrelevant person, someone who is likely illiterate, Sally Hemings, and make her to be an extraordinary figure in the founding of our country. Thomas Jefferson, without love of Sally Hemings, would not have accomplished half of it. Really ridiculous sentiment. Now, much of the blame, in my estimation, would be put on the shoulders of Pete Onuff, who was the Thomas Jefferson Memorial Foundation scholar at UVA in 1989. And since he got there, he did everything he could do to tarnish the legacy of Thomas Jefferson, focusing on just all negative things, cherry picking his facts and doing his best to destroy Thomas Jefferson. In 1992, he sort of sanctioned a gloves-off conference at UVA titled Jeffersonian Legacy. A book came out of that. And he boasted that the top Jefferson scholars in the world were not invited. Now imagine having a conference on any figure like Aristotle, a great philosopher, 384 to 322 BC, and boast that In an effort to get new perspectives, all the very best Aristotelian scholars are not going to be invited. We want people who are not experts to give us new direction for the legacy and thoughts on a narrative of Jefferson. It was, as Dan Jordan, who was then president of Thomas Jefferson Memorial Foundation, said, it was unabashedly presentist, revisionist, and postmodernist. He says something to the effect, contributors generated polemical discourse, reasoned debates, brilliant insights, wild aggression, and even some egregious misinformation. He adds, there were, I quote, revisionist zeal, presentism, and a tint of political correctness. This is something about which you ought not to boast, that you're using present concerns to evaluate figures of the past, that you're adopting a politically correct agenda, that you are radically revisionist. And the idea here is there any push to generate a veridical narrative to get at the truths about Thomas Jefferson? Onuff had a rather acherontic, a rather dark tenure, and I don't mean that metaphorically, I mean that literally at UVA. Okay, I would add that the light of truth was no obstacle for his efforts to clean completely the Jefferson slate and start again. For him is probably a feculent stable of smelly facts based on literature, according to Jefferson, and then begin a different narrative of Thomas Jefferson, one where Jefferson is not lionized, but where the hypocrite and the racist come out, and the man who supposedly did so many things for the benefit of our country, his state, and his fellow human beings is given a fresh look. And Onuff is unabashedly modernist, someone who's not committed to facts-based history. He says when he's referring to a book, in his book, The Mind of Thomas Jefferson, he talks about Connor Cruz O'Brien. He likes O'Brien's book and essays on Jefferson because O'Brien calls him might have been the actual founder of the KKK. And he says O'Brien's work is pseudo-positivistic. In other words, he's interested in basing stories on facts. He uses original sources, another thing that is really bad, right? I guess he says of Connor Cruz O'Brien, I quote here, no relativism, no constructivism, and no invented tradition. Thank you, just the facts. So he's castigating O'Brien for not adopting relative, for not being constructivist, for not inventing things. And that is a defect of O'Brien's approach to historiography. Unbelievable to me. Right? Now, what's also sort of fascinating to me, and I discussed this with Donna Vitek and Dave Dietrich, is in 1999, while the Thomas Jefferson Foundation is discussing Jefferson's supposed paternity, he comes out with a book, co-edits a book titled Sally Hemings and Thomas Jefferson, History, Memory, and Civic Culture. So he is already exploring the paternity of Thomas Jefferson and its implications before the foundation even comes up with their verdict on whether Jefferson was the father of any or all of Sally Hemings' children. Another tack of Onuff is that, in my estimation, I'll say this as plain as I can, he invented Annette Gordon Reed. Annette Gordon Reed published her book, Thomas Jefferson, Sally Hemings, American Travesty in 1997, 1 year prior to the DNA results. Onuff sees the book, jumps all over it, realizing that, this is a nice pairing, an African-American and even more a female African-American scholar who thinks Jefferson had an affair with Sally Hemings. And now the DNA evidence shows really nothing. He created, in my estimation, Annette Gordon Reed, and she was the perfect spokesperson for his views on Jefferson and Sally Hemings. And Gordon Reed is no stranger to constructivist historiography or history that just ignores the truth. She says in Memoirs of a Few Negroes, in the end, it will probably be left to novelists, playwrights, and poets unencumbered by the need for footnotes to get at the ultimate meaning of the story. That effort done in the right way will yield universal truths as important and real as any to be found in history books. In other words, if we approach history through the lens of fiction, right, as a novelist would, a playwright, or a poet would, we're going to generate more truths than we would if we really look for facts. Now, she wins a Pulitzer Prize in 2009 for another book on Jefferson, 17 other awards, and she's considered to be perhaps the world's foremost authority on Thomas Jefferson. I find that, I'm giving my opinion, I find that laughable. Endorsing fiction and endorsing constructivist historiography, and this is a Pulitzer Prize winning scholar who is at Harvard right now and has, goes and gives speeches for many, many thousands of dollars and so forth, wherever she goes. Anyway, her library, I'm sure, is filled with all sorts of literary awards. Mine is empty. I've published 27 books on Thomas Jefferson, right? I'll put some up here for viewers. American Messiah, Thomas Jefferson on, I hope this is going to work here because I got the background thing going here. Let's see. Here, the scholars, Thomas Jefferson in Paris, Thomas Jefferson's notes on the state of Virginia. Get that up there, it's not showing, there you go. Thomas Jefferson's political philosophy and the metaphysics of utopia. All right, here. Thomas Jefferson's philosophy of education. Thomas Jefferson on taste in the fine arts. Thomas Jefferson, psychobiography of an American lion. And Thomas Jefferson's Bible. These are just some of the 27 books I've either written or edited. Only 2 of the books were edited. Yet none of my books are for sale at Monticello. I don't have any awards in my trophy case. Never been invited to speak at the Smith Center behind Monticello, which is run by Vice President of the Foundation, Andrew Shaughnessy. I have never been invited to speak at Monticello, Poplar Forest. Andrew Shaughnessy once said on an email that I still have that when I asked why I was never invited to speak, given my prolificity vis-a-vis Thomas Jefferson, he said, "You don't dig in the same garden as the rest of us," i.e., that can only mean you don't buy into Thomas Jefferson, Sally Hemings story. You don't buy into Jefferson as a racist and hypocrite. We're not going to have you here, right? It's also funny that none of my books have ever been considered for publication at UVA Press. They only looked at one book and sent it out for review. And the review, I'm sure it was done by O'Shaughnessy, said, oh, the author is clearly very knowledgeable, but he goes into too much detail. Well, I just laughed at that because I've always told my students the essence of writing good history or philosophy is going into detail, taking a little problem and doing such a thorough job that anybody who wants to discuss that problem will have to go through your book. So, when I emailed the people at Monticello several years ago and asked why none of my books are there, I was told, well, they have a panel that decides each year what books to include, and my books are just not relevant. 27 books on Thomas Jefferson. None of them are relevant. It's not that they're not relevant, they're highly relevant. I've heard some kind words from some very, very high-ranking scholars. I know better. The books I think, make a wonderful contribution to our understanding of Thomas Jefferson, a contribution the likes of which Merrill Peterson and Dumas Malone have made, except my approach is analytic. It's more philosophical, less historical. It's not the same. Okay. And another thing is I can't even contribute and add my perspective on Wikipedia because I've been blocked. How the hell that happened, I don't know. I am completely convinced that the people at Monticello network, they have their people, Peter Onuf, Gordon Reed, O'Shaughnessy, and all these people, Fraser Neiman, the president, Dan Jordan, the last president who was there, who's no longer there, have their people all over and make sure that books they publish at UVA go through Peter Onuf, O'Shaughnessy, and Gordon Reed. Those are the editors for Jeffersonian America. Of course, I'm not going to, but they have a network out there, and anybody who doesn't buy into their narrative gets canceled. Hence the title of this talk, Christmas Cancellation. Now, am I bitter? Hell yes, I'm bitter. But what makes me more disgusted is not so much what they've done to me. Consider what they've done to Shaven and the three other police officers whose lives are completely ruined. What's happened to me by the Wokeists and the progressivists at Monticello is small potatoes next to what happened to the police officers. And all the police officers involved in Minneapolis were thrown under the bus, right, by the mayor and all sorts of important people when they needed help. So worried were these important people by the wokest, the left people who might riot. And of course, they did anyway. It didn't really matter. When you want to riot, you're going to riot. Now, so my own cancellation, like I said, is small potatoes next to what's been going on in Minneapolis and other places. But the point is I'm disgusted by what's going on in our country. Wokeism is decimating. It's annihilative. It's destroying the country. And no one has the guts to stand up and say, this is bullshit. We need to do something. I had a friend of mine, an elderly scholar, tell me, you're fighting this fight on your own. I live on a small salary retirement, which is meager. So I have to cut grass, chop trees, do landscaping to pay my bills. That's not the case with all I had to do is say, Thomas Jefferson was a hypocrite, racist. I would have a posh, I would have a posh job at some institution like University of Virginia, as long as I follow the narrative of Monticello. And as I said before, it's very dangerous because Monticello is seen to be the most important source of information. I use it a lot. It's an excellent source for information on oddities with respect to Jefferson, apropos of Jefferson, but it's a terrible source when it comes to Jefferson, the person. He's a racist, he's a bigot, he's a hypocrite, probably hates women. So what is the philosophical foundation for the wokeism at Monticello, and that's prevalent in Jeffersonian scholarship across the country, across the world? In Onuf's 93 book, Jeffersonian Legacies, there is a footnote in an essay by Stephen Conrad called Putting Rights Talk in Its Place. And in one of the footnotes, Conrad cites the deceased philosopher Richard Rorty, who was a pragmatist. And I quote from Conrad, in a symposium panel discussion, which was in 1992 at the University of Virginia, Richard Rorty eloquently made the case for setting aside questions of historical accuracy and philosophical justification in order to sustain the present-day cause of international human rights, a cause that has lately invoked the Jeffersonian tradition to profound effect. We need to read this carefully. We can put aside historical accuracy and philosophical justification. We don't have to justify our claims. We don't even care if the founding claims upon which we base our narratives are true or false. It doesn't matter. The point is present-day cause of international human rights, right? Right, and this is what motivates the Jeffersonian tradition. We're out there to be paladins of racial equality, irrespective of what we do to get there. Doesn't matter if we have to drag Jefferson down by a net of lies, pull him out in a net, drown him in a net of lies, as long as we can move forward racial equality. Now, of course, the problem with this approach is the problems are two. One is if there's no truth, if we're just creating narratives as the postmodernists think, there's no truth or falsity to what we do when we do history. How do we know that, racial equality is worth pursuing? Because the whole issue of racial equality, there's no truth or falsity. It has a bearing on it. So why should we not shoot for racial inequality or racial indifference, right? The answer they'll give is because they're telling us it's important. And, that scares me. I've always worried about people who know better than I do what's in my best interest, what's in our country's best interest. Let them do the thinking for us, right? Um, Orwellian stuff, is it not, right? Let them do the thinking for us. That's what scares me. So in effect, I bring up the killing of, quote unquote, the killing of George Floyd to show in effect that there's a parallel at Monticello that involves essentially me. I've been canceled. I have contributed more to our understanding of Jefferson, and I really believe this, than perhaps anybody in the world, having written on so many things, the natural bridge, critique of his notes on Virginia. And I was aided in my education at the University of Pittsburgh, where I studied Greek and Latin and other languages. I studied the history of science and other things like that, that I think make me very well prepared to study Jefferson. And yet, I'm canceled. This is how the people at Monticello work. The larger picture is not just a Jeffersonian picture. It's a picture where we tolerate wokeism. We tolerate cancellation, and we don't find it abhorrent. I do find it abhorrent. We need to start thinking for ourselves and stop letting other people think for us, telling us what's morally right or wrong or how we ought to behave, that we ought to be tearing down statues of people without thinking about what we're doing. There's some statues that need to be torn down around the world. Joseph Stalin and people like that, V.I. Lenin. And, it's a complex issue. Hasty, aggressive behavior is not the solution. Thoughtful activity, activity based on allowing both sides of the discussion to be heard. That's not what goes on at Monticello. If you don't agree with them, if you don't dig in the same garden, they will not listen to you. They block you. They block your books. They won't let you get published. They make it difficult for you to get published at university presses. Because anybody who's going to publish a book that challenges Jefferson's racism, the editor who publishes that might lose his job. He might be called a racist. There's a lack of courage going on. We need to stand up for the truth. That's what's at stake here, the truth. And if we allow our narratives about our founding figures, the greatest of which was Thomas Jefferson, to be built upon a foundation of lies, then as a country, we are in really serious trouble. That's all I want to say for this Christmas. I hope you had a great Christmas. New Year's is just around the corner. And ta-ta for now, TTFN. Go Blue.